Right now, somewhere in your house, a cat is staring at a wall for no reason anyone can explain, or a dog is lying by the door, watching it, waiting for a person who left 6 hours ago. Does he know how long 6 hours is? Does he know he's the one waiting? Or is he just a very convincing biological machine, running on instinct, with nobody actually home behind those eyes? Here's the question that's been quietly wrecking scientists and philosophers for decades. Not, are animals smart? Plenty of things can be smart without being aware of anything at all, the way a calculator is smart at math. The real question is stranger. Is there something it feels like to be that dog? To be that cat? Or is the light on with nobody inside? Stick around, because the answer involves mirrors, octopuses, and a fish that might recognize its own face. Let's start with why this question is so hard to answer in the first place. You can't just ask an animal if it's self-aware. And even with humans, you can't actually prove anyone else is conscious. You just assume it because they act like you, and you know what's going on inside your own head. Philosophers call this the problem of other minds. With animals, that assumption gets a lot shakier because they don't act like you. They don't have language. They can't just tell you what it's like in there. For centuries, the default answer in the West was simple. And Bertoldo ate sabilio. Animals don't feel anything, not really. A 17th century philosopher named Descartes argued animals were essentially organic machines. No inner life, no suffering, not in any way that mattered. Cut one open, and any sound it made was just mechanism, like a clock chiming. That idea stuck around far longer than it should have. Even into the 20th century, plenty of scientists refused to use words like happy or afraid about animals in serious research. Too subjective, too unprovable, career-ending if you got caught doing it. So how do you study something you can't ask about, using a method that won't even let you name it? Someone finally found a clever workaround, and it starts with a mirror. In 1970, a psychologist named Gordon Gallup Jr. tried something simple. He put a small mark of odorless dye on a chimpanzee's forehead, somewhere it couldn't see or smell directly. Then, gave it a mirror. Here's the logic. If the chimp saw the mirror and touched its own forehead, trying to look at or wipe off the mark on its own body, that meant something big. It understood the reflection wasn't another chimp. It was itself. It recognized its own face. Most animals fail this instantly. A dog barks at the mirror or ignores it or sniffs behind it looking for the other dog. It never connects the reflection to its own body. But a small, strange list of animals pass. Chimpanzees, bonobos, orangutans, dolphins, spotted through a window, twisting their bodies to see a mark on their own side. Asian elephants, using their trunk to touch a painted spot on their own head while looking in a mirror. A moment, researchers say, gave them chills to witness. And, almost absurdly, magpies, a bird, a creature with a brain the size of a walnut, apparently capable of the same self-recognition as a great ape. Dogs failing this test doesn't necessarily mean they lack self-awareness, by the way. Dogs live in a world built out of smell, not reflections. Some researchers have redesigned the test using scent instead of sight, swapping a dog's own urine sample with an altered version. And dogs respond differently to the self-smell than to a stranger's. Different scents, same underlying question. So, a handful of species, across wildly different branches of the tree of life, all seem to recognize themselves. That's not nothing. But it also raises an uncomfortable follow-up. What about everything that fails the test? There's a second kind of test that digs even deeper. Not, do you recognize yourself, but do you know what you don't know? Scientists call it metacognition, and it's arguably a bigger deal than the mirror. Here's how one version works. Researchers train a monkey to pick the right symbol on a screen to get a reward. Easy round, hard round, mixed in randomly. But there's a third option hidden in there, a button the monkey can press to skip the question entirely and take a smaller, guaranteed reward instead. A creature with no sense of its own uncertainty should skip randomly, but that's not what happens. Monkeys reach for the skip button far more often on the hardest, blurriest rounds, the ones where they're most likely to guess wrong, and barely touch it on the easy ones, which means something remarkable is happening in there. The monkey isn't just answering, it's evaluating its own confidence first and deciding whether to trust it. That's not instinct. That's something closer to knowing that you don't know. This is where a philosopher named Thomas Nagel asked one of the most famous questions in the field, not about mirrors, but about bats. In 1974, Nagel wrote an essay called, "What Is It Like to Be a Bat?" His point was this: even if we mapped every neuron in a bat's brain, we still couldn't know what its world actually feels like. Because bats navigate through echolocation, a sense humans don't have at all. We could describe the mechanism perfectly and still miss the experience completely. That idea, something it is like to be a creature, became the working definition scientists use for consciousness itself, not intelligence, not problem solving. Just, is there an inside to being this animal or not? And once you ask the question that way, the list of candidates gets a lot bigger than chimps and dolphins. Take elephants. Beyond the mirror test, elephants do something that looks unmistakably like grief. When one dies, herd members will linger by the body for days. They touch the bones with their trunks, gently, almost investigatively, sometimes returning to the same spot months later, long after the body is gone, just to visit the place. Nobody has proven this is grief in the human sense, but it's very hard to watch and conclude nothing is happening emotionally. Then there's an animal almost nobody expects to be in this conversation: the fish. For a long time, fish don't feel pain was treated as settled science. Their brains seem too simple to matter. That's changed. Fish have nociceptors, the same class of pain-sensing nerve cells found in mammals, and they respond to painkillers the same way mammals do. A strong hint that whatever they're experiencing resembles pain, not just reflex. In 2019, researchers ran a version of the mirror test on a species called the cleaner rasa, and some individuals appeared to try scraping a mark off their own body after seeing it in a mirror. A fish, behaving like a chimpanzee in front of a mirror. And then there are the bees, which might be the strangest case of all. Bees have been shown to display something researchers call pessimism bias. Shake a beehive the way a predator would, then offer the bees an ambiguous scent, not clearly food, not clearly a threat, and stressed bees are slower to approach it. That's the same pattern you'd see in an anxious mammal. It suggests something resembling a mood, running underneath all that instinct. Bumblebees have also been filmed rolling small wooden balls around, repeatedly, with no food reward at all, no reason tied to survival. Just rolling them, again and again. The way a kid rolls a ball for no reason except that it's fun. Researchers have struggled to describe that as anything other than play. Which brings us to the animal that breaks the model completely: the octopus. An octopus has around 500 million neurons, in the same range as a dog. But here's the twist. Only about a third of those neurons sit in the central brain. The other 2/3 are distributed out in the arms themselves. Each arm can taste what it touches and can react, sometimes make decisions, semi-independently, almost like 8 separate mini-minds loosely coordinated by one central hub. Trying to imagine what consciousness is like for a creature like that isn't just difficult. It might require throwing out the whole human template for what having a self even means. In 2012, a group of prominent neuroscientists got together and signed something called the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness, a formal statement saying, essentially, that the biological hardware for conscious experience isn't uniquely human. It exists across mammals, birds, and they specifically named octopuses. That's not a fringe opinion anymore. That's a growing scientific consensus. So maybe the right way to think about this isn't a hard line. Conscious on one side, empty machine on the other. Maybe it's a spectrum. Maybe a chimp's inner world, a bee's inner world, and an octopus's inner world are all real, all different, and none of them look anything like yours. And if any of that is true, it isn't just an interesting trivia question. It changes what we owe these animals, How we farm them, test on them, and treat them once maybe there's somebody in there stops being a maybe. There's one more clue, and you can watch it happen for free tonight if you have a dog. Watch a sleeping dog closely, and eventually you'll see it. Paws twitching, breath quickening, maybe a muffled bark with the mouth barely moving. That's REM sleep, the same stage in which humans dream. Nobody can prove a dog is dreaming about anything in particular. But the brain activity during that stage looks strikingly similar to a human brain replaying the day. Octopuses do something even stranger while asleep. During a certain sleep phase, their skin will ripple rapidly through completely different colors and textures, the exact patterns they use while hunting, hiding, or threatened while awake. Some researchers studying this think they may be watching an octopus replay a memory, one color shift at a time, with nobody around to see it except a camera in a lab. If that's what's happening, it means the inner life of an octopus doesn't just exist while it's awake and reacting to you. It might keep running in the dark, alone, for reasons that have nothing to do with survival at all. So think about that dog by the door again. Maybe he doesn't know what 6 hours means, but maybe, in his own way, built from smell and sound instead of clocks and calendars, there's still something it feels like to be him, waiting. That's either strangely comforting or a little unsettling, possibly both, and that's usually the sign you've stumbled onto a real question, not a simple one.